their previous adventures, Wallace and Gromit have faced villains as full of life and as memorable as our heroes themselves. For The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, the biggest challenge facing the Aardman animation team was building their new star, the fearsome Were-Rabbit, terror of the vegetable patch. So where did the directors Nick Park and Steve Box get their ideas?
A great inspiration for the film, I think, for me, was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
The other movies have always been a reference to film genres. The whole universal horror movie genre. It's another great genre to plunder. And what if instead of a werewolf, it was a were-rabbit?
The character of the were-rabbit was a challenge because we wanted the film to be funny. That's its primary target, to make you laugh. But we also want it to be dramatic. You know, we wanted a monster in the town. It had to scare the townsfolk, threaten their vegetables.
What's to become of the vegetable show?
We live for that competition. We're simple folk.
But we also wanted it to be somehow friendly.
Well, don't you worry. I'll protect you.
So it's kind of like this huge, cuddly teddy bear.
So once you've designed the first vegetarian movie monster, how do you bring it to life?
We actually had to start from scratch in looking at how we wanted the puppet to move and what the outside form needed to be. So we started with just a very basic wire armature and asked the animators to start animating through with that.
Just as we have bones that give us our shape, the were-rabbit needed its own special metal skeleton, known as an armature. Here's head animator Ian Whitlock to explain.
Straight away I went in to build wire armatures so that we could work out the lengths of all the joints and everything, all the bones and things like that.
Meet the man behind the monster, model maker Andrew Bloxham.
In some ways it's quite similar to a lot of the figure armatures which we've made before, but there are a few differences. Obviously the proportions of the armature to make it more rabbit-like. Also, because it's extremely active in this film, we've got quite a lot of rigging points here, which are these big brass sections. A lot of the kind of character of the were-rabbit is through the position of its shoulders, you know, from, you know, quite a sort of beast-like thing to a bit of, oh. So the armature can cope with a very wide range of movement of the shoulder.
Great big hairy thing! Stop!
So once you've built the skeleton, what's the next step? Padding is the soft material used to fill out the monster's body. Hard plastic muscle called coring helps shape the creature's limbs and has many different uses.
When the animator touches the arm to move it, he doesn't have to squash the arm right down to grab the armature. It's just really to limit the amount of movement of the fur when the arm's moved.
After years of making their supervillains out of plasticine, the directors wanted to give their latest creation a new, softer, more cuddly feel. But this meant that the Aardman animators were about to face a terrifying new enemy.
Hey, give over!
Fur.
You haven't got the plasticine, so that's great because there's not so much sculpting, but because of the restrictions of touching it, it's quite hard to lever it around to get it into position, especially when you're dealing with its face.
Fur gives away that it's been touched a lot more. Where your fingers have touched the puppet, you've moved the fur.
So how did they finally solve the problem of moving the were-rabbit without moving the fur?
We've kind of come up with this system here where you plug these handles into the back of the rabbit, and then you can actually manoeuvre the body around without touching the fur.
This is traditional English fur fabric, which most teddy bears are made out of. It's got a very rigid backing, and for the amount of movement that we actually needed, it was far too restrictive.
The model makers had to search far and wide for a solution to their furry problems.
We found a company in the States that supplies to the film industry that supplied us with a four-way stretch fur fabric, which is on an elasticated backing, and so that helps give us the movement that we require.
And it takes quite a while to order up, it's quite expensive, but it does move like no other material.
The design team had hoped to build just one body for the were-rabbit, but they soon realised that all the action involving the bounding beast meant that they would need to build more than one.
We realised that we actually had to make a separate puppet for the running were-rabbit.
Run, rabbit, run!
We needed to identify the shapes and the movement that we were needing to build to. From this one, we realised it had to crunch right up and compress completely up, and then stretch right out, and then also have a mid-position. We had to understand how it moved and build it from there.
Just as the were-rabbit needed different bodies to do different jobs, the animators also had to make a range of different heads, known as replacements.
There's probably about 4 or 5 different types of head. Was the smile head, where that had more wire in its mouth. And there's other versions, there's the half howl head, which is used for him when he goes into his howl transition. And then there's the howl head itself, which is like a tube on its mouth, and you put an Allen key in and wind his mouth out. So there are basically, yeah, quite a few that were built just for different jobs.
The were-rabbit is a strange and sensitive beast. So to help show all its different emotions, the team also had to build a brand new type of head with a very expressive, fully posable face.
And it's very different to the way which we've built heads here at Aardman's before. The way we've done it here is by having the jaw controlled on a drive, which raises and closes the jaw. And also we've got small sort of worm gears in the top here, which make the cheeks move up and down. There's a moving nose part here for when he has to sniff. The ears, which are obviously an extremely expressive part, just on ball and socket joints at the top here. Alley wire again, which is really good for that expressiveness.
Just like one of Wallace's inventions, the model head had some teething problems, or eye problems to be more precise.
Normally we just push the eyes into a socket and they're just held there by the kind of stickiness of the plasticine. When the brow was being pushed down, the eyes kept falling out, so we had to find another way of doing that. He's actually got magnetic eyes, which just kind of pop on there. All of that kind of helps let the animator put the face into a position without actually touching it too much.
Having finally solved all the problems of bringing the were-rabbit to life, an even greater challenge bounded into view, transforming a plasticine Wallace into the furry were-rabbit.
What the dickens?
The worst thing was the leg transformation, which probably took about a year from start to finish to build and to finally get animated.
A complex mix of fur, plasticine, specially built models and a lot of very hard work had to come together to create only a few seconds of film.
It's a Wallace leg, it's a plasticine leg, and it's all sculpted through. The foot starts off like this, first of all. It's this is a scaled up version of Wallace's shoe. As he's kind of transforming, the foot starts stretching. And then the fur foot was added afterwards, and fur was kind of pushed into the hole to give the impression of seam splitting on the trouser legs. Wallace grown rabbit teeth. This is just done with a couple of replacements, and we've added sort of mouth shapes, and just wanted to make it a little bit more comical. This is done with were-rabbit fur with a former behind it on 2 winders, which were pushing through the fur. The shirt fabric was stretched over the top of it, and down the seam of the shirts were some wire, and it's basically animated out as the buttons pop under tension. We needed the rabbit to rip the shirt off. We needed to kind of get nice shapes out of the shirt as it's ripping off. All of these tests were to help Nick visualise how the transformation would take place.
And the end result is what you see in the movie. A bounding ton of garden destruction.
As soon as I heard about it, I thought that's what I want to animate, really. I didn't realise quite how much work it was going to be, but hopefully it's all been worth it in the end.
And I'm sure you'll agree, it's a howling success.